Hello and good morning, EAC members and members of the public. I wanted to do a quick video update. As you may know, I may or may not be able to attend the meeting coming up on October 12th. So, as requested, here is the election administrator update presented to you ahead of time via video. I want to go over the upcoming November election, a little bit of the new legal changes and the outreach and prep work that we are doing for these new legal changes and in general to notify people about the election. I wanted to talk a little bit about legal challenges, record request updates, upcoming EAC vacancies, and potential projects for 2023. So let's start with recent court decisions. We've had two court decisions come out bearing on the recent election laws passed by the 2021 legislature. Specifically, the rules are around same-day voter registration or election day registration. They're around ID requirements for voters who vote at the polling place, as well as the time frame which we can send ballots to voters who turn 18 years old. And then for other groups, there are rules about ballot collection, but for the elections office, that does not impact us directly. So we had a Supreme Court ruling, which what it did was it reverted back a previous court's injunction to the current rules that we had in 2020. That came out on September 21st. Now, that ruling didn't have that final ruling from Judge Moses' merits of the case. What were the actual arguments made, and where is it deemed that those were unconstitutional laws that were passed? So on September 30th, Judge Moses issued a ruling on the merits of the case. With the current time frame for the upcoming election, there's not enough time for an appeal to the Supreme Court, so we know that for the upcoming election, we will have same-day voter registration. So after each law change, we reflected our information to make sure that it had the current court ruling statuses. So after the Supreme Court decision was made, we stated that this process was still under legal review because there hadn't been a ruling on the merits of the case. But now, after the district court ruling, we're letting voters know that there will be election day voter registration, and also at the same time encouraging voters not to wait. Currently, it takes about 2 minutes to register and get a ballot. On election day, we expect that with previous elections to be upwards of 2 hours. So while we're excited to be offering that service for voters, we're really encouraging them not to wait until election day. Now, the hard part about this is knowing that there were all kinds of different legal decisions going on. We did include some outreach on our instructions, and at the time of printing, election day registration laws were under legal review, and they were limited to that very small subsection. The nice thing was we had really discussed this with our communications team. Everybody who's receiving a copy of those instructions is already a registered voter. ID requirements. This reverts us back to our previous ID requirements listed in 2020. Any photo ID with the elector's name. It could be a Costco card, a student ID, an out-of-state driver's license, a credit card with a picture on it. If the ID has an expiration date, it's not considered current and it can't be used. But if it doesn't have a listed expiration date, it's considered current, and any driver's license is considered valid as long as it's not expired. And then if a elector doesn't have a photo ID, they can use another form of ID, such as the voter confirmation card we mail to you when you register to vote. This is an important rule change because what it does is it makes sure that we have ID requirements that are standard throughout the state, and it was stated that using those more restrictive 6 forms of IDs by the Secretary of State was an undue burden for voters. Election day registration. So this is at our election center here at 140 North Russell, and it's a service for voters who are not registered to vote so they can get a ballot. If your information's changed due to a move inside or outside of the county, you can update and receive a ballot here. It's not a centralized precinct for anyone to go to election day and receive a ballot. So if a voter is a registered voter who hasn't received a ballot, the only way for them to vote is to appear in person at their polling place. And we're going to work really hard on advertising My Voter page so that voters can know and understand where they're registered. Want to talk about some additional services and improvements that we've made. We did a National Voter Registration Day event. We held an educational event online and in person, and there's a link to the recording included here. I'll make sure that these slides are sent out to everybody as well. We also had National Vote Early Day we've opted into, and this will have a satellite office event at, it says the UC here, it's actually at the university in the law building. We'll be offering extended hours from Tuesday, November 1st to Friday, November 4th till 6 p.m. so that voters can come in after work should they still need to. And then on the Saturday before the election, we'll be running from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. to help make sure that we can get voters registered and issue them a ballot. We also scheduled quite a slate of satellite office events. This is the most events that we've ever had. So we will be reaching out to other voters on that. A couple of important dates and deadlines coming up next week. On Wednesday, October 12th, you must come in person to register to vote. On Friday, the 14th, ballots mail. And starting on November 1st, the USPS recommends 7 days. So in Missoula County, we prepay postage, but if you get and you still have your ballot on November 1st, we're going to encourage you to use a drop box or come and drop it off in person. Polling places will be open, and now the election center will be open for Election Day voter registration. And we expect longer than current wait times because our current wait time is so short. Like I said earlier, this is a final safeguard, and we're excited to offer the opportunity for voters, but we do expect there to be a wait time. Tagging in a little bit on that, some outreach we did to you all. We recruited in and sought additional election aides to help be able to better serve voters on Election Day and limit that wait time as much as possible. We were hoping to get 10 people, and we have just recently received our applications gone through. We'll be reaching out to 16 individuals and hoping to get them trained up to help serve with same-day voter registration and other important election tasks. So if you had helped with any of that outreach or applied yourself, thank you so much. I love this, social media outreach. Every day, we utilize social media through the county to help make sure that information is shared. We have so much going on that it doesn't even fit on this screen. If you have specific requests, check MissoulaVotes.com. Help us share that information. Missoula Votes is where you're going to get the most accurate information on this upcoming election. Here's a copy of the backside of the instructions. So it lists out those satellite office dates and times, as well as lists the times we'll have drive-through ballot drop-off, our after-hours ballot drop-box, the information that was current at the time of printing for voter registration, as well as, very important, the survey. We reached out to you earlier with questions about surveys, information that we were looking at putting out, and we've been able to create this fantastic survey. We're working right now to finalize it and get it live by the time ballots mail on the 14th, but we are reaching out to voters. We're asking them why they vote. Do they vote by mail? We're asking them how they vote. Do they vote by mail? Do they vote at the polling place? Why they vote in that fashion? Are they confident that their ballot's going to be counted? And specifically, we're going to ask a few questions important for next year's redistricting. How far are you willing to travel to go to a polling place? What do you feel is an appropriate amount of time to wait for service at a polling place when you arrive? This way we can utilize the data we currently have and the information. As public servants, it's important we ask the public what they want and listen to that. In addition to that, we have another QR code and link, which helps show voters the series of checks and balances we take to protect the integrity of the election. Process tours. Starting this morning today, as I'm recording this on Wednesday the 5th, we are doing ballot preparation, and we've invited in the media and press to come and see ballots prepared to be sent out in the mail. We have a fantastic team in working on this, and then they are also and we have 17 teams. They've been preparing almost 60,000 ballots to go out in the mail, and they've been doing a lot of hard work to help make sure that come the 14th when ballots mail, voters in Missoula County are prepared and ready to go. In addition to that, we will do a press release as well as an email blast to elected officials, candidates, to make sure that everybody knows and is aware of the upcoming other tours of our equipment testing, ballot processing, counting center, provisional ballot count, post-election audit, and canvass. These are the processes that have kept Montana's election so safe and secure. And it's so critical that people who have questions about the process come and see this. Unfortunately, we're having a very hard time getting those who may have confusions about the way elections truly function to attend these meetings. So if you can, help us share this information. We'll have the press release go out. We'll forward it to everybody as well, similar to the past elections. Please share this information. If you know somebody who may be questioning the way our elections process, have them come in person. Even our strongest critics have come to these tours and left feeling more confident in the process. Let's talk a little bit about records requests and legal challenges. So we've been receiving some regular requests for a cast vote record. We utilized a program called Next Request to track records requests. So we are able to respond to records requests, track them, and note that there's been a previous request and it has been responded to in this fashion. That cast vote record is going to be a digital version of the paper ballots that were counted by tabulators. And in order to produce this report, you have to operate on the electionware reporting system. In 2020, we hadn't upgraded to this system, so we were unable to produce this report. We've been working hard to help educate some members that, in fact, no, we couldn't produce this report in 2020, but because this is a digital version of the paper ballots, counties have received guidance from the Secretary of State that if they produce this report, it will require a court order to be received. With records requests, you are not required to produce a new document you do not have. And Missoula County policy looking at this will be that if this request is coming through, we will produce it if it's a required report. But if it's not a required report, we won't produce it and we won't provide it out. And we won't have to inform people that they would be required to have a court order to receive that. We also received about 4 or 5 request to retain material for the 2020 election, and we replied to those who had requested that we will follow the upcoming retention policy guided through the Secretary of State. We have received a filing which is stating it is a legal filing, and it is stating that the plaintiffs believe that the video surveillance footage that we live streamed from the 2020 election was not held in accordance with the retention policy. Time and time again, we've been through what the retention policy is and where it is at, but we're welcoming this legal challenge as a way to clarify this through the courts. Included in this filing is a claim that we're not following retention policies when a voter is input into the statewide voter database and moved from one jurisdiction to another. What happened is that when you move a voter from Missoula County to Gallatin County and you run a report for a previous election, they may not appear in that report correctly. When we had received a request for a report that would have had data which would be incorrect like that, we directed them to reach out to the Secretary of State's office, and they chose not to do so. And they have a lot of confusion about what county controls there are and who controls the database and what that guidance is. We'll provide more information about this court case as it proceeds forward through the courts. I wanted to talk a little bit about future projects and EAC assistance that we could use on this. So we're going to have a lot to do in 2023. We're going to have list maintenance, a database update. We'll need to update our precincts within Missoula County. We'll have legislative updates, so new laws passed and comments on that. I know that we'll be working hard on upcoming records requests from the 2020 election and combating misinformation. Unfortunately, there has been so much misinformation nationwide that this is becoming a large portion of our jobs, responding to records requests and combating misinformation. Then, after the legislative session and any potential law passes, we're going to work to update our materials, processes, trainings, potentially videos to be very well prepared for the upcoming federal presidential election cycle. Let's start with the list maintenance. This is considered National Voter Registration Act as well as absentee maintenance. Under laws passed in 2021, we kind of combine those two and we're doing a yearly list maintenance. This will take place in January 2023. What happens is that any voter who has been listed as inactive in the database and has not had any activity for the past 2 federal general elections, 4 years, they're going to be moved from an inactive status to a canceled status. Then any voters who have an address that's different at USPS than the elections office are going to get mailed a postcard. And if that postcard's returned to our office or not received a month after sending, we're going to send them a second postcard just to confirm their address, help get that information updated. Now, if those voters have not responded a month after the second mailing, they're going to be moved from that active status to an inactive status. Inactive voters are considered eligible voters. You'll hear me talk about a lot ballot return rate versus voter turnout. Inactive voters, those people who are on the list for 4 years, are considered eligible voters and they lower our turnout drastically. They can appear at a polling place to reactivate and cast a ballot, but they're not automatically sent a ballot in a mail ballot election. So we'll be doing that process. We pull that list early in January, do the mailing mid-January, second mailing mid-February, and have completed all of those inactivations in March in time for an upcoming school and special district election. Overlapping with this is a statewide voter database upgrade. In January 2023, the Secretary of State's office is planning on updating the statewide voter database. We've worked very closely with them throughout this process. We've not been able to do the parallel testing that's been taking place this year during the election due to the size and scope of Missoula County's elections. This will hit every county in the state of Montana, and it overlaps with these other required elections processes, such as the NVRA annual list maintenance. So as we go through this, we will all be getting training and working hard to help understand and utilize a new voter database. There's never really a good time frame for this, but we've worked hard with the Secretary of State to make sure this is the best possible database. There will be bugs when it comes out, but instead of rolling it out at the beginning of this year, rolling it out at the beginning of next year with potentially smaller school, special district, and municipal elections allows much more time to work out any kinks ahead of the upcoming 2024 election. In this, it may help address some of the requests from recent records requesters as well. Updating precincts. This is going to be a huge project. As we're going through redistricting right now, we are utilizing those districts for the last time before they will be updated for the next cycle. So in 2023, with the new districts, House and state districts that have been redistricted at the state level, counties are required to update each precinct so that they're nearly even in voters. This is also the opportunity for us to look at polling places and match our service with their utilization and the requests of voters. We've got information on costs, staffing, and utilization of polling places. Just training judges, I believe, is $80,000. We staff in over 600 people, and in the primary election of this year, we had 2,500 voters vote at polling places. It is time for us to take a look at this because what we have seen is in the last 10 years since we last updated our precincts and polling locations, people have become comfortable and confident in absentee voting. 80% of our voters vote absentee. I think it's 75% of all voters, 85% of those active voters, because remember, those inactive voters don't receive a ballot in the mail. So on the survey, on the instructions, we added a survey to help gain information about voters about what they'd like. We take public service seriously in Missoula County. You ask the public what they want, and you try to be as responsive as possible. So combining the data we have on costs, staffing, utilization, we will come up with some great maps and potential ideas, and we will work to make sure that we ask for advice from the EAC members as well as the public on these upcoming maps, precincts, and locations for polling places. This is also becoming important because our polling locations many times are in school. A week ahead of the June election, we had a large school shooting. Safety and security of students is always in mind. And so when we're allowing public, unfettered access to the gymnasiums of these buildings, there's a large security concern. We are working closely with the schools to help address any of these security concerns, making sure that we have noted each polling location election laws with our local law enforcement, as well as also making sure that we have help make sure that we have staffed places with additional security so that people can't go through the gyms. We want to come up with a plan, work hard, something that makes sure that safety and security of school is in mind, utilizations of polling places, as well as being fiscally responsible with taxpayer dollars that we spend. So we'll take a look at each of this and we'll come up with good plans, looking at that next year and follow up with the EAC. I think that this is a great potential project for the EAC to look at, is as we come forward on this and we're looking in this area, we would like to move this polling location here. What are the thoughts? Is there a better location that we might be missing? Legislative updates. Beginning in January of 2023, Montana is going to hold another legislative session. During this time, I work closely to monitor any election-related bills, review them, and update our county legislative teams with impacts that they would have on voters and on our office. We'll have updates sent out on important election bills. If you were serving for the 2021 election cycle, we're hoping to do it very, very similarly. Okay, I'm looking at the time that I've spent here. I'm just about 20 minutes. For me, that is a fantastic election administrator update. So I want to say thank you to everybody. I want to make sure that you ask me any questions, shoot me an email ahead of time. I can reply to everybody. Or if you have something you want, you can call me or shoot me an email directly if you don't want to reply to everybody. But I wanted to say thank you for your service. Appreciate everybody's work on this EAC as we come into another important election cycle. It's so great to have a group of people dedicated to elections that we can share this important information with, help recruit and train these important election aides, work towards making sure that accurate information is shared out, and in general support the whole entire process of elections. So thank you all, and look forward to meeting you next week. I should be able to be there, hopefully a little bit late, depending on what happens with our previous appointment. So thanks again, and have a great day.